The sharp sound of a slap echoed through the crowded shopping plaza, freezing everyone in place. A little girl dropped the loaf of bread she had been carrying as tears filled her frightened eyes. Her father stood perfectly still, refusing to raise his hand in anger even though a powerful CEO had just humiliated him in front of hundreds of strangers. But before anyone could accuse him or escort him away, the CEO's bodyguard caught sight of an old scar running across the man's forearm. His face turned pale. In that instant, the towering guard realized the man being shamed wasn't a thief, a troublemaker, or a stranger. He was the hero who had once saved his life. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still exist, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to our channel. Every act of support helps our community continue sharing stories that remind us that compassion is stronger than pride. For nearly 4 years, Graeme Ellison had raised his 7-year-old daughter, Clara, alone. His wife had passed away after a long illness, leaving behind memories that still filled every corner of their tiny apartment. Graeme had once served as a firefighter, but a devastating warehouse collapse ended his career forever. The same accident left a deep scar stretching from his wrist to his elbow and permanent damage to one shoulder, making heavy labor nearly impossible. Since then, he accepted every honest job he could find, delivering groceries, repairing bicycles, cleaning offices, and working weekends just to keep food on the table. Despite their struggles, Clara never complained. She believed her father could fix anything except sadness, and every morning she reminded him that tomorrow would always be better. Those simple words became the hope Graeme carried through every difficult day. Across the city, Vivian Sterling ruled one of the nation's largest retail companies. She had earned a reputation for brilliance, discipline, and impossible standards. Investors admired her confidence, while employees feared disappointing her. Years of betrayal by dishonest business partners had convinced her that trust was a weakness. She judged people quickly because she believed hesitation invited failure. That sunny afternoon, Vivian visited one of her flagship department stores for an unannounced inspection. Executives followed behind her while photographers documented every moment for the company's promotional campaign. At the same time, Graeme entered the same store with Clara to buy school supplies using money he had carefully saved over several weeks. As Clara admired a small backpack covered in colorful butterflies, another customer accidentally bumped into a display. Several expensive designer handbags tumbled onto the polished floor. In the confusion, one bag slid toward Graeme's feet. Before he could even bend down to return it, a nearby employee mistakenly shouted that someone was trying to steal it. Vivian turned instantly. Already frustrated after discovering several management problems during her inspection, she assumed the accusation was true. Without asking a single question, she marched forward and struck Graeme across the face. The entire store fell silent. Clara rushed toward her father, wrapping her tiny arms around him as tears streamed down her cheeks. Graeme didn't defend himself. He simply picked up the handbag and calmly handed it back to the employee. Then something unexpected happened. Vivian's head of security, a broad-shouldered man named Declan Pierce, stared at Graeme's exposed forearm. His breathing stopped. He recognized the scar immediately. 8 years earlier, Declan had been trapped beneath burning steel beams during the warehouse disaster that destroyed Graeme's firefighting career. Smoke had filled every hallway. Rescue teams believed no survivors remained inside. One firefighter ignored the evacuation order. That firefighter was Graeme. He crawled through collapsing debris, pulled Declan to safety, and suffered permanent injuries during the escape. Declan had spent years wondering who had saved him because the injured firefighter disappeared into surgery before they ever met again. Now he stood before him, being humiliated because of a misunderstanding. Declan stepped between Vivian and Graeme, his voice trembling as he explained exactly who this quiet single father really was. Every executive standing nearby turned pale. Vivian felt the weight of her actions crash over her all at once. She had publicly slapped a man who had once risked everything to save another person's life. The employee responsible for the false accusation admitted that panic and assumptions had caused the mistake. No theft had occurred. Security cameras confirmed Graeme had done absolutely nothing wrong. Customers began whispering. Some recorded the scene. But Graeme's greatest concern wasn't his own embarrassment. He knelt beside Clara, gently wiping away her tears and reassuring her that everything would be all right. Watching that simple act shook Vivian more deeply than any public criticism ever could. She approached Graeme with genuine remorse and apologized immediately. Graeme accepted her apology politely but quietly explained that humiliation leaves scars no camera can erase. Then he picked up Clara's backpack and walked toward the exit. Vivian stood frozen. For the first time in years, success felt meaningless. That evening, she couldn't stop thinking about the frightened little girl protecting her father instead of the other way around. The next morning, instead of sending lawyers or public relations managers, Vivian visited Graeme's modest apartment alone during the daytime. She found him repairing old bicycles in the courtyard while Clara colored pictures beside him. The apartment building showed signs of age. The bicycles waiting for repair belonged to neighborhood children whose parents couldn't afford new ones. Graeme fixed them for almost nothing. Sometimes for free. Vivian realized that while she had spent years building luxury brands, Graeme had quietly been rebuilding hope for families nobody noticed. She apologized again. This time there were no cameras. No executives. No audience. Only honesty. She offered Graeme a generous financial settlement. He respectfully declined. Money could replace damaged property. It could never replace dignity. Instead, Graeme asked for something unexpected. He requested that she create better training for employees so nobody else would ever be judged before the truth was known. Vivian promised she would. And she kept that promise. Over the following months, every Sterling retail location introduced new policies emphasizing respect, patience, and careful investigation before accusations. Customer service became centered on compassion rather than suspicion. Employees noticed another change. Vivian herself began visiting stores quietly, speaking with cleaners, cashiers, delivery drivers, and security guards. She learned their names, listened to their struggles, and discovered that leadership meant understanding people instead of simply managing them. Meanwhile, Declan and Graeme developed a close friendship. Declan often helped Clara practice riding the bicycles Graeme repaired. For the first time since losing his wife, Graeme felt surrounded by people who genuinely cared. One afternoon, Vivian invited Graeme to speak at the company's annual leadership conference. Standing before hundreds of managers, Graeme shared no stories about heroism. Instead, he spoke about ordinary kindness. He explained that every person carries invisible battles, and one careless judgment can become the heaviest burden someone remembers for years. The audience remained silent. Many wiped away tears. Vivian stood and applauded before anyone else. Not because Graeme had saved lives years ago, but because he continued saving hearts every single day. Months later, Sterling Retail launched a nationwide community program supporting widowed parents, injured first responders, and struggling single families. Thousands received scholarships, emergency assistance, and employment opportunities. The initiative carried no grand slogan. Only a simple message. Choose compassion before judgment. Graeme never became wealthy. He never wanted fame. He remained the same humble father who believed character mattered more than recognition. Clara eventually told her classmates that her father wasn't famous because he rescued people from fires. He was famous in her heart because he never let anger change who he was. Vivian often remembered the moment her hand struck an innocent man. It remained the greatest mistake of her life. But it also became the beginning of her greatest transformation. Before we reach the end of this story, please leave a meaningful comment and tell us, have you ever been judged unfairly, or has someone shown you unexpected kindness when you needed it most? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Because true greatness isn't measured by the size of a company, the wealth in a bank account, or the power to command others. It is measured by the courage to admit when we are wrong, the humility to ask for forgiveness, and the kindness to see the humanity in every person before passing judgment. Sometimes, the strongest heroes are not the ones who save lives from burning buildings, but the ones who refuse to let bitterness burn away the goodness in their own hearts.